Okay, my name is Tara. I'm the CEO and founder of THC Primary Care, and we provide primary care network management services, training courses, and facilitation. And our services and our training and facilitation to date, we have supported over 120 networks. Now, and just to mix it up for you guys, I thought I would share with you our quarterly dashboard. And the imposter in me says, it's just, and these are just thoughts. This is how I like to work. If you don't have anything in place, hopefully there'll be one or two ideas that you can take from this. The reason why I like to work and have a quarterly dashboard, it's just in PowerPoint. I'll walk you through each section. I'll walk you through each section is because one of the common complaints from primary care networks that we experience is that they feel like they don't know what's going on and information isn't readily available. It's kept in people's heads, and then when they go on holiday or if they leave, that organizational memory, that performance, the results, is hard to track. And also, especially when it comes to finances, we don't want to be unpicking things at the end of the financial year if we don't have to, if we'd have just kept a check on it on a monthly, quarterly basis. So it's just an idea, disclaimer, like, don't come for me. These are just thoughts, and I hope that it's helpful. Okay, so I call it, the document is called What to Include in Your Quarterly Review. Sometimes I refer it to the PCN as a PCN dashboard. And like on your PCN dashboard, you'd have your PCN, hopefully the name, the logo, and maybe your little strap line, but not mandatory. Okay. So I like to work to a plan on a page as a kind of the North Star. So this is what we're working towards over the next financial year. So in this PCN, what we agreed was we wanted to strive for maximum achievement of the impact and investment fund. The money would be reinvested back into practices based on the practice achievement unless PCN staff delivered certain indicators, and then it would be done on fair shares. We talked about workforce development and really wanting to create like a people plan and invest in the team. We talked about wanting to improve the digital infrastructure and utilising tools like Apex, Ardens, Digital Triage and Better Letter. The network wanted to invest in health kiosks, a personalised care team, an integrated first contact physio and pain clinic team, care coordination. This one, the network agreed for every practice, regardless of their list size, to have one FTE care coordinator. And then the rest of the services were kept at kind of PCN level. Talked about centralising the pharmacy team and talked about investing in the leadership and management team and having dedicated clinical leads. So it's nice to have, be behind that obviously sits further detail, but for the purposes of this quarterly review, having a plan on a page to remind everybody this is what we said that we would do. So this is some of it's example, some of it's real, just trying to mix it up. So I'm not talking about one particular PCN, but the PCNs I like to work with have a plan on a page. Okay, next up, I've called this knowing your numbers or whatever you want to call it, but I find it helpful to remind networks of the income coming into the network. So in most meetings, people say, oh, I didn't know this, or how much is this worth, or, how can we spend it? So I think it's helpful to remind people, this is the funding stream, this is how much it's going to get, this is how much we're going to get if we go to the maximum on certain areas, how can we spend the funding? And then you might want to include, how are we spending the funding, just a snapshot. And again, there'll be a detailed, in-depth financial spreadsheet behind this, but sometimes it's just nice to remind people of the income that is being managed and coming through the network. Okay, I've just made myself smaller because I realised I'm like cutting into the screen. Some practices, some networks, if you devolve money down to practices, you may want to, don't have to, you may want to highlight how much money or the proportion of funds each practice has got. Sometimes it's helpful reminding your practices. This is like we have given you 200 grand to support you with your workforce. So I just think it's helpful to just be transparent, be straight up, and just transparently communicate. I think it's really, really important. The other thing I like to include in our quarterly dashboards is just to remind people again of the team. These are fictitious names. Well, they're real names, but it's not one particular PCN. So yeah, just highlighting, we do employ all of these staff and it will look different, but definitely having an organisational chart. In other ones, if they're allocated to practices on a kind of consistent basis, you might want to highlight that. It's trying to put as much information just on one slide. There is a couple of areas where it goes on multiple slides, but I like to try and keep like one topic on one slide, so it's not like death by PowerPoint. Okay. So one thing I also like to do is just to remind people of the roles that we can employ using the additional role reimbursement scheme, just so we're all on the same page, and just to remind people, because there's always questions around which roles can we employ. Okay, next up, you might want to remind your network of the services in the DES, so you can speak to those. And then for those networks that are doing so much more than the DES, again, this is your opportunity to remind the network, this is what we're doing, guys. And this is an example of a network doing amazing, amazing things. So this is your opportunity to highlight, this is what we're actually delivering. Okay. And make sure, as the manager in CD and whoever your clinical leads are, when people ask you questions relating to the service, you can speak confidently about those services. Okay, next up, I've called this just monitoring and communicating our performance. So again, this is just a reminder of what we said that we were going to do, and it just ties into the governance. Again, this is just to preempt anybody saying, I didn't know. You can say, well, we do have a monthly this, and we do have bi-weekly newsletters, and we did have this meeting, and here are the minutes, and just reminding people of the mechanisms that are available to communicate the network's performance. And so people understand what's going on. I would say if you are the network, well, probably the manager, if you're in the leadership and management team, be prepared to, repeat yourself over and over and over and over again. There will always be somebody that says, oh, I didn't know. And I think it is, and I think that's okay. I think people are so incredibly busy. We need to be creative. We need to just, set things on repeat and just make sure we are communicating consistent messages. So this relates to capacity and access. And if you are watching this video and capacity and access is finished, it's just a work stream that the networks needed to deliver at this moment in time. So with capacity and access, at the time of recording, I know that there are some networks that have not had any confirmation from their ICB whether their plan has been approved. Some people will not do the work that they said they were going to do, but I personally would do it. I would just crack on and do it, because it's not uncommon for approval and information to come out late with the assumption that you're cracking on and doing it. But again, that's just my view. I'm not saying that's what you should do. So capacity and access, if I was in the network, I'd want to understand, just remind me, what did we say we were going to do? So we've got the must-dos in there, and there was a template that we needed to fill in. I won't go through this line by line, it's just an example, but the must-do requirements regarding completion of the friends and family tests, and so on. So I would keep that in here, and I've got the little ticks there to kind of say, yeah, we're on track with that. And then the bullet points is, oh no, they're still outstanding. So this is just an example. Okay. So in your quarterly dashboard, you might want to include where you are performing, where you are up against your capacity, your local capacity and access plans. But again, it's completely up to you. include, if you've got a locally commissioned service, you might want to highlight to your practices, okay, what is the overview of the service, like the who, what, why, when, how much, and all of that stuff. Any important dates, any mobilisation dates that we should be working to, any risks and issues, and the next steps. In your dashboard, you might want to include, or I'd say you probably should include if you're going to have one, is your investment and impact fund indicators and how you are progressing. And I would be asking questions like, is the data correct? Do we trust the data? Do the practices know their position? Do we just deliver this in the meeting, or do we go round to the practices and just highlight and just try to understand where they are and why they are in certain situations? At the time of recording, we're approaching winter, we've got flu coming up, so we'll be able to explain some of the, if the network is low in one area, is there a rational, logical explanation for this, and just what are the plans moving forwards? So you're keeping on top of your impact and your investment and impact fund indicators. Again, with enhanced access, you might want to review how are we on utilisation, any comments, do we trust the data, is everybody doing what they said they were going to do, and just making sure you understand, especially with the financial implication regarding this. So I would definitely make sure you understand how your network is managing enhanced access. Okay, I've moved across the screen. So this is just any PCN projects and service beyond the DES, outside of the DES. Like, does the network have clarity on the service and project scope, the patient cohort, the processes regarding the service, if any training is provided, any financial reimbursement, how the service and project will be delivered, key dates, risks and issues, and so on. So it's just about making sure the network has been informed and reminding the network of what is going on, and also reminding yourself. You may also want to include key performance indicators around the number of appointments for example, FCP or pharmacist or social prescribing link worker, just so you're evidencing the impact, just so they can see the difference that having this extended workforce is bringing, I think is really helpful. And if there are some question marks, it provides that opportunity to say, okay, what's working well and what would be even better if. So it does, if it's not a glowing report, it's okay. It's the opportunity for further investigation, for you to iron out any tweaks, or, just manage expectations. New services may take slower. And it's just about managing expectations and helping the network understand this is all the amazing stuff that we're doing. Okay. And then you might want to include, your next steps. So it's, I think, not working on some strategic and operational priorities across 90 days gives us enough time to actually be able to deliver. As an example, the focus may be on immunisations and vaccinations as we head into winter, local capacity and access plans. You might want a financial review and just look at the allocation of Rs. I forgot to mention that, and that's in the blog actually. Now is the time to review your Rs, your additional role reimbursement scheme allocation. If you're not spent, to think about how can we spend it, and don't wait till quarter four, because then it's too late, and especially if you're utilising commission services. If you are relying on another service to provide you with staff and you want more, let them know now. One of the networks I was supporting is thinking about a new pharmacy service. You might want to be updating the governance. One of the networks we're working with is using us for development sessions, so that's a priority. You might have an away day coming up, you might have pay review. So they're just some examples just to focus your efforts in your leadership and management team, letting your networks know what, this is the focus behind the scenes, or, double checking, are we focused in the right direction? So this is the template that we use, and each networks is slightly different, but it's just a good way of capturing the information on a quarterly basis. Some things happen monthly, but this is like all roads lead to the dashboard. And then lastly, what I wanted to say is that It's a lot of work. It really, really is. And I couldn't do this without administrative support. And this is like what I've just presented is the minimum. Like there are some networks doing so much. So it does take time to build, but then once you've got it in place, and I like to call like your default diary, so things happen on a like a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, and you start to schedule that in, and your administrative support can help you help the managers and clinical directors with this information. If you don't have support, I really want you to have it. The PCN manager role is huge, and a lot of your time is not even spent on it's spent on that, like HR and managing the relationships and going to loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of meetings. So if you don't have support, I would be happy to speak to your CD to help them understand that running a network is a big job. It really is a big job. And if you want that attention to detail, it does take time. It does take time to have this information, to work with your practices, to understand the situation. It really, really does. So that's my take, and that is my experience. I hope that this is helpful. And this, I think I mentioned the blog. This is part of our what to focus on in Q3, and you can find the link either down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or it will be in the body of the blog if you are looking at this on the website. And yeah, thank you.